Happy Taurus season. So today we're going to be mixing together Lunar Tides, Cerulean C, and their Juniper Green. Oh no. Oh no. I have my swatches labeled 1 through 12, but that is not synonymous with hair levels. I'll be doing close-ups and other pictures near the end of the video, so the numbers just help us keep track of each swatch. I will be transparent though. I don't know if they change these swatches every time I buy them, but when I tried to make a range this time, I had nothing in between here. It was like this to this, and it felt like it was a little too much of a jump. So I did take my overtone chocolate brown and I did dye one of my lighter swatches. It's not a perfect in between, but I felt like it was better than nothing. But if it does take a dye differently than the rest, that is why. Otherwise, my swatches are human hair, but the only one that is virgin hair is the number 3 black swatch. The rest have been chemically dyed or bleached at some point in their existence. 1 is gray, 2 is a natural red, 3 is black, and then from 3 to 11, we have a range that goes to a platinum blonde, and then number 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So with my mix videos, I like to do 2 separate parts. So I'll do one mixture on top and another mixture on the bottom. And for our top mixture, we're going to actually do equal parts. So the same amount of Cerulean C as there is Juniper Green. So Taurus season begins roughly around April 19th to May 20th. But that does change every year, and that's why it's just a rough date. If you're unsure what your sign is, like if you're born around April 19th or May 20th, find out the time that you were born at, and you can go to a website like Astro.com and get a natal chart or birth chart made, and that will tell you what your sun sign is. Astrology actually is very heavily reliant on degrees. So for example, you could be born, let's say early April 19th, 1 in the morning, and you would be an Aries. And then someone else born April 19th, 2021, born around maybe 6 p.m. would be a Taurus. I believe this year Taurus starts around 3:34 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is my time zone. For the second part, we're going to be doing a 2-to-1 ratio. So that is going to be 2 parts of Juniper Green and 1 part Cerulean C. I've noticed that a lot of people aren't totally sure why their sign is always associated with certain colors, so I did kind of want to go over that for each sign and explain my choice for color as well. So Taurus is ruled by the planet Venus, which Venus is considered the planet of pleasure and leisure. So that could be anything that you like to do, like listening to music or drawing. That kinds of stuff is ruled over by Venus. Love is also something that tends to be associated with Venus as well. So you might actually see Taurus placed with the color pink at times, which I agree with as well. I think Taurus is a very pink, certain shades of pink at least. But on the other hand, Taurus is an earth sign. And like all the earth signs I've noticed, they always tend to be associated with earthy tones like greens and browns, which can give you some insight into why I picked a greenish shade. Now, something I don't think I've mentioned about the other signs that I've done yet, but Taurus is also considered a fixed sign. There's fixed, cardinal, and mutable. Fixed is very steady, and that can show through in many ways. For example, maybe you're just like very stubborn. So Taurus being a fixed sign as well as an earth sign, I think also has people associate money with Taurus as well, which is another reason why I think green is a very Taurusy color in my opinion. Now, I would almost argue that juniper green to me is a very Taurus color, but for some reason, I also love to associate Taurus with like emeraldy greens. So I really wanted to create an emerald green for Taurus today. Now, I think the equal parts is going to be a little bit too blue, but I still wanted to satisfy anyone who is looking to see what equal parts would look like. And I actually feel like the bottom half, that's a 2-to-1 ratio, is a lot closer to what I was visualizing a Taurusy emerald green looking like. Now, of course, I will compare both cerulean sea and juniper green to this mixture once we're done, just so you can really see the differences. But for now, I'm gonna let these sit for about 3 hours. I will then rinse them out, and when we're done, we'll do our comparisons. I'm a little surprised at how similar the top and bottom actually look to each other. I feel like when I was applying the dye, the equal parts looked very blue, and I was really worried that it was going to be way too blue for this. But now that they're both dyed, they look pretty similar. I will say the equal parts does look a little bit darker, the top half here, but in reality it's really hard to tell a difference. I know cerulean sea does have a little bit of a greenish blue look, so maybe the green in that combined with the green of the juniper green together just stayed green. So I figured we'd go right into comparisons, and cerulean sea is obviously a lot less similar to this mix, so we'll start with that really quick. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, and number 10. I put the piece of paper on top so that hopefully the diluted section doesn't get as distracting, but you can kind of see now the depth of cerulean sea and also how the cerulean sea does lean a little bit more green for a blue. Obviously the Taurus mix though does still look more green. And then of course I wanted to compare this to juniper green on its own. So this is comparable to number 12, number 11, and number 10. I did do 2 separate diluted parts back in the day, so that's why this looks a little bit darker than this, but I'm gonna cover that up anyways so that again it's not as distracting. Hopefully you can tell on camera, juniper green is also on the darker side, so that explains why the mixture is of course on the darker side as well, but juniper green is leaning a little bit more warm, like yellowy toned in comparison to the Taurus mix. And while I personally can't really see a huge difference between the top and the bottom for the Taurus mix, I figured since the bottoms had a little bit more juniper, I would still move the swatches down so you can kind of see a possible difference. But I have to say, I'm pretty happy with how the Taurus mix came out. It's pretty much exactly the shade of green I was anticipating. I do like shades of green like this for Taurus as well, like the juniper green, but something about Taurus and emerald green just makes total sense to me. And I actually did a dye called Emerald Green by the brand One and Only, so I figured let's just compare that as well. This is comparable to number 12. This is comparable to number 11, and this is comparable to number 10. So just in case the camera is able to pick up on something that I can't see in this burnt lighting, I decided to move down the swatches to the more juniper green end and then also cover up the diluted section. Now initially looking at it, I didn't feel like these greens were too similar. I wouldn't say that they were dupes, but now that I covered up the diluted section, they actually do look a little bit closer than I originally anticipated. I would say that the emerald green, the one and only emerald green, does look slightly more warm, but not quite as warm as juniper. So if you feel like my mix is too blue, too much cerulean sea, and juniper green is just a little bit too warm, the one and only emerald green might be a really good option for you. All right, so now I'd like to get into the before and after clips. Those, as well as everything at the end of this video, will all be done in natural lighting. I hope this video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just remember, I only do dyes that do not test on animals. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.